Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Brian. It's an honor to be on this panel, especially with Governor Holton, and to be speaking to Mrs. Holton. They've been kind enough over the years to host my Washington term students at cookouts at their home, and for that I'm grateful. As Brian mentioned, I'm going to talk about touch on two topics, congressional elections and partisan polarization. The first topic, congressional elections. Much of what is important in congressional elections is decided in the out years, not the election year, but the out years. What happened last year, what happened over the past decade, what happened 200 years ago, may be as important as anything that happens in an election year such as this. Now, the Democrats' current majorities in Congress are as follows. In the House, they have a 236 to 199 majority. In the Senate, a narrow 51-49 majority, including two independents. To understand congressional elections, political scientists take two approaches. One, examining national trends, and two, seat-by-seat analysis. Both approaches are valid. Tip O'Neill, again, famously said, all politics is local, therefore the seat-by-seat approach makes a lot of sense. But we now have the Gingrich and Pelosi corollary to all politics is local, namely, except when it's national. The 1994 and 2006 wave elections, where Republicans picked up 52 seats in 1994, Democrats picked up 30 seats in 2006, suggests that it isn't simply all local. National trends can be measured, for example, in generic polls. You see a lot of touting of these polls. And they currently show double-digit lead for the Democrats, though this eroded somewhat during August and September, at least until the recent financial crisis. As we speak, the House is tying up its vote on this financial bailout package. All bets are off as to whether this will be a nationalized wave election given the current economic turmoil, but it certainly has the potential to be so. Nationalized elections tend to be unpredictable. Political scientists call them abnormal elections, and political science models are designed to track normal elections. So they're by definition unpredictable. For example, no one saw the 1994 tsunami coming. No one. The seat-by-seat approach considers fundamentals of congressional elections such as retirement, recruitment, fundraising, reapportionment, redistricting, etc. A couple of those points. Number one, retirement and recruitment. These are out-year decisions by the candidate or by the incumbent. Due to retirements, Republicans are defending many more open seats in the House and in the Senate. 29 House Republicans retired this cycle, only 6 House Democrats did. 5 Senate Republicans retired, 0 Senate Democrats did. Before a single ballot is cast, the Democrats are in a position to gain. Republicans are vulnerable. There are 3 Senate Republican open seats that are particularly in danger: Colorado, New Mexico, and Virginia. The Virginia Senate seat where John Warner is retiring. Plus, Democrats have had greater success recruiting good candidates, in part because in the out year, it already looked like it would be a good year for Democrats. Mark Warner in the Virginia Senate race is a good example. But another example would be a Washington Lee alum in Pennsylvania, a Republican, who is seriously contemplating running for Congress. He deferred that decision because this did not look like a good Republican year. He's not running in this particular cycle. Second, fundraising. Incumbents amass huge war chests in the out year to deter challengers, and it works, as do the parties. The Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee this cycle has raised 7 times as much money as the National Republican Campaign Committee. That may be as much a cause as effect of the likely outcome. 3, reapportionment and redistricting. Earlier in the decade, critical line drawing or gerrymandering occurs, creating an overwhelming number of incumbent-held safe seats for both parties, almost 200 each. Therefore, only 42 of the 435 House seats are generally seen as competitive by a Congressional Quarterly Weekly report. Redistricting has become so technologically sophisticated, one wonders if the politicians are choosing the voters rather than the voters choosing the politicians. As important as all of the above, however, may be what happened 200 years ago when the founders created the constitutional playing field for congressional elections. Congressional elections are intimately bound up with presidential elections. For example, midterm elections historically have gone against the party in the White House, especially so-called 6-year itch elections, for example, the 2006 election. Two-term presidents typically cost their party. The 2008 election, the longer you control the White House, the worse you tend to do in the House of Representatives. Under James Madison's Constitution, as soon as you win, you begin to lose. For example, the Senate Republicans' success 6 years ago, in 2002, translates into vulnerable freshman incumbents and leaves the Senate Republicans defending 23 overall seats this year in the Senate to only 12 for the Senate Democrats. Success breeds failure. Another example, the House Democrats' success in 2006, 2 years ago, gave them 30 freshman seats that they must defend, and freshman seats are the most difficult seats typically to defend. But on balance, this does not look like a good year for congressional Republicans, yet the losing party may have constitutional cycles on their side. For example, if Barack Obama wins, and I think on balance that is what is likely to happen, history suggests that Democrats will lose seats in Congress 2 years from now, in 2010. Indeed, some House Republicans are echoing Newt Gingrich's 1992 lose the White House in order to win the House strategy that he used against the first President Bush. It worked for Newt in the 1994 tsunami election. As for predictions for congressional elections, the most reliable are people like Charlie Cook or Stuart Rothenberg or Larry Sabato at the University of Virginia. Sabato is predicting at this point, and these numbers shift on a daily basis, 9 to 15 seat pickup for the Democrats in the House, 4 to 8 seat pickup for the Democrats in the Senate. Charlie Cook, a little more optimistic for the Democrats, 12 to 17 Democratic pickup in the House and a 4 to 8 seat pickup in the Senate. The Senate Republicans are likely to lose New Mexico, Alaska, and they're virtually certain to lose Virginia. Stuart Rothenberg is even speculating about the Senate Democrats reaching the magical 60 seats in the Senate. The second topic, following the 2008 presidential election, are we likely to see the end of bitter partisan polarization in American politics? Lots has been written on the subject of partisan polarization, whole books. Ron Brownstein, a National Journal reporter, has a book called Second Civil War, suggesting the severity of this problem. Juliet Epelrin, Washington Post reporter, Fight Club Politics. Two political scientists, Mann and Ornstein, The Broken Branch, and Barbara Sinclair's book, Party Wars. All the titles suggest the severity of the problem, as some suggest. Much of what is written laments the partisan polarization in our politics. Two of these books end by hoping that the next president will help heal our partisan wounds. Obama and McCain are both promising to end partisanship. The party maverick McCain, with his centrist appeal to independent voters, hopes to do so, and Barack Obama is explicitly running as a quote-unquote post-partisan candidate. Although it's worth asking, are they campaigning as if they truly wanted to end partisanship? More importantly, can either a President Obama or a President McCain move us beyond partisanship? Could, for example, Governor Holton, as good-hearted a politician as you'll find, could he end the bitter partisan polarization if he were elected president? It may not be up to presidents alone. Congress is polarized, as we saw earlier in this past week with the financial bailout vote. Last week, former Congresswoman Connie Morella, a moderate Republican from Maryland, came and spoke to my class, and she commented that moderates in Congress are endangered. They're an endangered species. The center is empty in Congress. Congress is polarized. Today we act as if we'd like to take the politics out of politics. We bemoan the bitter partisan polarization and the permanent campaign. But James Madison, the father of our Constitution, did not think you could take the politics, including partisanship, out of politics. In Federalist 10 and 51, Madison intentionally infused our politics with the spirit of party, quote unquote, the spirit of party, and factionalism. Yet people today persist in arguing that the founders were anti-party. Madison's friend Thomas Jefferson famously said, "If I could not go to heaven but with a party, I'd rather go to hell." Yet Jefferson was the founder of our first political party. Jefferson's actions speak louder than his words. An anti-party posture may at times be an intellectual conceit and often is a disguise for partisanship. We sometimes like to think of the founders as statesmen rising above politics, and they were. But they were statesmen and they were politicians, and I don't think that's an insult. Like Larry Sabato, I think politics is a good thing. I think partisanship is a good thing. It provides voters with a choice, not an echo, for example. Proof that partisan confrontation is constitutionally permissible may be found in the fact that during the 1790s, the first decade of the American Republic, our supposedly anti-party founders engaged in rather sharp-elbowed partisanship, indeed in rather bitter, polarizing, and personal partisanship. In the 1790s, we see the founders' practice of their principles. Historian Joseph Ellis's description of the 1790s sounds like the polarizing partisanship so oft lamented by critics of today's politics. Quote, "The politics of the 1790s was a truly cacophonous affair. Previous historians have labeled it the age of passion for good reason. For in terms of shrill, accusatory rhetoric, flamboyant displays of ideological intransigence, intense personal rivalries, and hyperbolic claims of imminent catastrophe, it has no equal in American history. The political dialogue within the highest echelon of the revolutionary generation was a decade-long shouting match," end quote. To the Federalists, Republicans were Jacobins in disguise. To the Republicans, Federalists were undisguised monarchists. Partisanship is potentially good or bad. Friction creates light as well as heat. Our Constitution, I would suggest, invites constructive partisanship, including often cacophonous, cantankerous, contentious partisanship. The principal differences between our two great political parties, whether over the Iraq War or immigration or global warming, matter. The founders understood that politics, partisanship, and polarization are good in part because our constitutional concrete can withstand a contentious and confrontational politics. Our constitutional institutions survive even when the latest partisan barbarians beat down the gate, whether it's Newt or Nancy. Majorities fall, but the Constitution stands. So I'll end with one prediction. Regardless of who wins, the partisanship will not end. The partisanship will not end. And here's why. It isn't just up to Obama or McCain. Congress counts. The causes of heightened partisanship include, 1, primary-dominated nominating processes, especially in congressional elections, which invite appeals to the party base. 2, gerrymandered redistricting, especially enhanced by computer modeling. 3, close elections, partisan parity, and narrow margins in Congress. 4, the democratization and decentralization of Congress due to institutional reforms. Some of the above causes that I've just listed were consequences of the 1970s reforms designed to make Congress more, quote-unquote, open and democratic. But there are other causes. The growth of government and the concomitant increased stakes in our politics. James K. Wilson, a political scientist, once said, "Once American politics was about a few things. Today, American politics is about everything." Thus, the culture wars. Moreover, we blame parties when we should also acknowledge the role of our two other key mediating institutions, interest groups and the media. Greater partisan polarization is due to the explosion in the role and the number of interest groups, so-called hyperpluralism, including in the think tank universe. Also, the decentralization, fragmentation, and greater competition of the new media as the hegemony of the old media establishment erodes has caused or has contributed to the polarization, for example, the internet and bloggers. And yet, finally, the most fundamental cause of partisan polarization may be our 200-year-old constitutional system, which invites, again, the spirit of party. Partisanship, I would suggest, is not a corruption of politics. Partisanship constitutes politics. Consequently, if partisanship persists following the November election, it won't solely be the fault of whoever is our next president.